Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtottara Shata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtottara Shata Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Virinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sekoho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Ghora Bhakta Virinda Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from Canto 3. Text, chapter 14, text 22 to 24. Okay. Somebody pulling it up. Atha, athāpi, kāmam, etam, te, prajātyai, karavāṇi, alam, yathā, mam, na, atirocanti, muhūrtam, pratipālaya, athāpi kāmam etaṁ te, athāpi kāmam etaṁ te, prajātyai karavāṇyalam, prajātyai karavāṇyalam, yathā mam nātirocanti, yathā mam nātirocanti, muhūrtaṁ pratipālaya, muhūrtaṁ pratipālaya, athāpi kāmam etaṁ te, prajātyai karavāṇyalam, yathā mam nātirocanti, muhūrtaṁ pratipālaya, athāpi kāmam etaṁ te, prajātyai karavāṇyalam, yathā mam nātirocanti, muhūrtaṁ pratipālaya, athāpi kāmam etaṁ te,
prajātyai karavāṇyalam, yathā mam nātirocanti, muhūrtaṁ pratipālaya, athāpi kāmam etam te, prajātyai karavāṇyalam, yathā mam nātirocanti, muhūrtaṁ pratipālaya, athāpi kāmam etam te, prajātyai karavāṇyalam, yathā mam nātirocanti, muhūrtaṁ pratipālaya, athāpi kāmam etam te, prajātyai karavāṇyalam, prajātyai karavāṇyalam yathā mam nātirocanti muhūrtaṁ pratipālaya
athāpi kāmam etam te prajātyai karavāṇyalam yathā mam nātirocanti muhūrtaṁ pratipālaya
athāpi, even though
it
it is not possible.
is not possible.
Kāmam, this sex desire.
Etam,
Etam, as it is. Te, your. Prajātyai, for the sake of children. Karavāṇi, let me do. Alam, without delay. Yathā, as. Mam, unto me. Na, may not.
Atirocanti,
Reproach.
muhūrtam,
A few seconds.
Pratipālaya.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Even though it is not possible to repay you, I shall satisfy your sex desire immediately for the sake of begetting children. But you must wait for only a few seconds so that others may not reproach me. Purport. The henpecked husband may not be able to repay his wife for all the benefits that he derives from her, but as for begetting children by fulfilling sex desire, it is not at all difficult for any husband unless he is thoroughly impotent. This is a very easy task for a husband under normal conditions. In spite of Kaśyapa's being very eager, he requested her to wait for a few seconds so that others might not reproach him. He explains his positions as follows. So I'll just go over 23 and 24. Esha goratama vela ghoranam ghora darshana charante yasyam bhutani bhutesha nucharaniha. This particular time is most inauspicious because at this time the horrible-looking ghosts and constant companions of the Lord of the ghosts are visible. Purport. Kaśyapa has already told his wife Diti to wait for a while, and now he warns her that her failure to consider the particular time will result in punishment from the ghosts and evil spirits who move during this time, along with their master, Lord Rudra. Etasyam sadvi sandhyayam bhagavan bhuta bhavanaha parito bhuta parshadvir Virshana Tatti Bhutarat. Lord Shiva, the king of the ghosts, sitting on the back of his bull carrier, travels at this time accompanied by ghosts who follow him for their welfare. Purport. Lord Shiva or Rudra is the king of the ghosts. Ghostly characters worship Lord Shiva to be gradually guided toward a path of self-realization. Mayavadi philosophers are mostly worshippers of Lord Shiva, and Sripad Shankaracharya is considered to be the incarnation of Lord Shiva for preaching godlessness to the Mayavadi philosophers. Gods are bereft of a physical body. Goats. That was a crazy misread. I'm so sorry. Ghosts are bereft of a physical body because of their grievously sinful acts, such as suicide. The last resort of the ghostly characters in human society is to take shelter of suicide, either material or spiritual. Material suicide causes loss of the physical body, and spiritual suicide causes loss of the individual identity. Mayavadi philosophers desire to lose their individuality and merge into the impersonal spiritual Brahmajyoti existence. Lord Shiva, being very kind to the ghosts, sees that although they are condemned, they get physical bodies. He places them in the wombs of women who indulge in sexual intercourse regardless of the restrictions on time and circumstance. Kaśyapa wanted to impress this fact upon Diti so that she might wait for a while. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshura Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamahyam Dadati Shvapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Atah Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagarajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sarvetam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vashankan Vitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dhinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Virshabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Namane Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshadharine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Khora Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare athāpi kāmam etaṁ te prajātyai karavāṇyalam yathā mam nātirocanti muhūrtaṁ pratipālaya. Even though it is not possible to repay you, I shall satisfy your sex desire immediately for the sake of begetting children. But you must wait for only a few seconds so that others may not reproach me. So, up until now, a lot of the classes have covered, we talked about responsibilities specifically for the man, for the woman, the protection of women, and the importance of this, and how the man is supposed to protect the women, and women who are properly situated are also supposed to protect the man. And when the woman is viewed as nothing more than a sex object, then one forces himself to become bereft of that protection. And we see that another thing that's also been discussed last couple of classes is the nature of man and woman as well. And of course, when we're protected by Dharma, when we're acting in under this protection, and when you're engaging in devotional service, and when the union between men and women is grounded specifically for spiritual advancement, we see that these natures of the man and woman respectively can be overcome, whereas the nasty side of a woman and a man can degrade both of them, and we see that. So we see now, especially Kaśyapa's continuing to make his unsuccessful plea to Diti to restrict herself or control herself, control her senses, so that they don't engage in this inauspicious act. Of course, we obviously know how this all ends. But one thing that stands out here is that rather than just the points being made about repayment now to the wife, now he's saying, please also don't make it so that other people might reproach me. So one thing I want to touch on, what stands out here is, and then of course we see that the text, it goes over to speak about the ghosts who are following Lord Shiva in hopes of getting another material body, you could say. And these ghostly characters are horrible looking. They're not, there's a reason why we don't talk about ghosts. I mean, we don't talk about ghosts in general, but especially we don't talk about them at night. There's nothing auspicious about them. You don't want to be having anything to do with them, especially when, again, they're known to be moving about, when the mode of ignorance is prominent, especially. So, again, we see that Kaśyapa is saying, please wait only for a few seconds so that others may not reproach me. The point that's made in Bhagavatam is that we're, of course, the basic principle of the material world, we come here trying to enjoy separate from Krishna, but the senses by which we try to do that through, we don't even actually have control over. The demigods are controlling every aspect of this, of the functions of the body. And so therefore, we're constantly, all our actions and our thoughts, and not just by the demigods, but of course by Krishna, because he's situated in the heart of every living entity. He's watching. So everything we do is under watch. It's funny, you hear about people who are schizophrenic, and they hear voices in their head, and of course they're disturbed mentally, and sometimes you hear like, oh, like they're trying to get me, they're trying to watch me, and people will say like, who's watching you? Like, nobody's watching you, and of course they're like, oh, well, the government's watching me, and that's there's like a lot of control which the government has and whatnot, but greater than that, of course, is that of the demigods. So that's an important thing. So we see here that the fear of being reproached by others is a great motivating factor for people to not act out of order, actually. So it has its proper use. A lot of the time, we live in this day and age now, especially, where people are like, don't restrict my freedom, don't tell me what to do, don't say anything about what I want to do, and in this way, I go on happily, you will go on happily. Don't restrict my sense gratification, I won't restrict yours. I can have my views, you can have yours. And everything's supposed to go on nicely in this way. But we see that because everybody's self-centered, actually nobody ends up satisfied. Not just one, because of the material world, but two, because when we start having issues with people's sense gratification impeding on another person's, then we run into problems. So this is a basic understanding that's not had. In Vedic society, ultimately everybody in the material world comes here for the same thing. I always thought it was funny. You'll hear women sometimes say, men only want one thing, and it's disgusting, because they just want sex. But women similarly also just want sex and all the different aspects that surround that. And men are no different, of course. We see that men are controlled by this desire. It's a strong desire. But in Vedic society, at least, it's gone about in a regulated manner so that people aren't degraded by indulgence in it, because it's not done in an animalistic way. So it's a pretty stark difference we see when we look at like how how Vedic civilization and society is described all throughout Bhagavatam, throughout Shastra. Vishnu Prabhu had made this point talking about how this civilization that of which we live in today was spoken about in of course not in proper light, because he was using this as a means of countering Krishna's desire, but Arjuna did try to make these points about the dangers of unwanted population coming from the mixing of the pollution of women in this age, and the importance of the protection, so that the women are protected, they don't get degraded, and also the men don't become degraded as well. So we see that in Vedic society, there's one central aim, and there might be some variety, of course, within that in terms of people might have different interests that they want to have satisfied, but the understanding still within Vedic civilization is that the human form of life is not to be wasted just merely on sense gratification. It's supposed to be used to facilitate the advancement of the living entity so we can stop taking these material bodies. Whereas in modern civilization, like I said, you have all these different conflicting views, and nobody actually knows what's right. There's no central theme that's guiding people. And we see civilization moving backwards to the point where, this is another point I'll reference that you made, about how much inspiration the modern society takes from animals. We've seen older men wanting and then moving forward, like executing this this transplant of genitals from an animal to their body so that they can try to enjoy like they did when they were younger. We see, this is one thing I'm especially aware of, I guess I can say, because I was quite into fitness. It's even in there, you'll see there's this big, it's not so big, but it's quite popular. It's called animal movement or animal flow, where it's very unconventional training method, where it's like you don't use weights, you rely on the movements of animals, and you mirror that, and that's your workout, basically. So it might be like crawling, you have like a catwalk, and you have like, you can move like a crab, like from side to side, and it's like it opens up your hips, and it's good for your ankles. Of course, you might have horse stance, where you're just like, it's more of a stagnant position, and this is also a good isometric exercise. So like there's so many different inspirations from the animal, is the point I'm making, in society, and it's in every aspect of society. I did a lot of that training. I'll be honest, which is why I know so much about it and about the benefits out of which you can get from it. It's because the aim of society is rather to try to enjoy on a level that of which the body is not actually able to enjoy on. We see that the animals are much more adept and able to enjoy to much greater degrees than we can. And being bereft of spiritual knowledge in this civilization, we're envious of that to the point where we want to try to be like them. And therefore, so many different things are wrong. So anyways, going on, we see, again, when the views are conflicting, when the proper aim is not fixed, everything goes to hell. The description is given in chapter 15 of the banyan tree. Everything is, you can't see what's what. This is the position of the living entity in the material world, is they don't know where to go, what's proper. And then even if you do have, for example, say it's so complex that even inside of Vedic civilization, you might accept the Vedas as an authority, but still you might get confused as to how to act, because there's so much that's in the Vedas. It's described that people who get attracted by the flowery language that's within the Vedas. So even if you're within Vedic conception, still you can, without proper guidance, you can find yourself lost even aside of that. We meet so many different people on books who might say, yes, this is nice what you're doing, but Durga is best, or they're all the same. Durga is the best, I worship her, she's the same. Whoever you want to be supreme is supreme. So anyways, there's different layers of Maya and misunderstandings. Material world is a dangerous place we see at every single step. I remember you quoted that just last class. I don't remember the Sanskrit. So yeah, that one. So anyways, again, we have these different aims and interests within societies. Now again, like I said, within Vedic society, at least it's sanctioned. Everybody can get what they want without getting degraded. And the reason for that is because there's understanding and distinctions between these different natures, which is a pretty key thing to understand. Whereas we see in this day and age, everybody's trying to do away, we have so many different ways and means that we divide ourselves. This is like one of the first things I remember that really stuck out to me in Prabhupada's books, is making this point that within religion, you have all these different religions, you have different races, and then even within that, you have divisions and distinctions within that subgroup, and that subgroup might be against another group and then think it's better. You have people who are grouping themselves and take designations as a result of whatever interests they might have. So there's all these divisions. And yet, despite the fact that we have everybody trying to find and change and choose their own designations, we also see simultaneously that people are trying to say that everyone is equal, and that despite having all these designations and differences, it's okay, because there's somehow supposed to be some resulting harmony that comes from all this, from having the freedom to choose. But actually we see there's no intelligence there. Intelligence means discrimination, and yet we're seeing in society that despite all these designations and whatnot that of which people choose and assign themselves, this ultimate lack of discrimination between an understanding of the different natures that we have is the reason, of course, for rampant degradation. The larger point I wanted to make was, so without this separation, essentially, it's stated in Gita. There's a verse, Kim karma, kim akarameti. Even the intelligent are bewildered what's right, what's wrong, and how to actually act. So again, there's not any means, no standard by which we can actually see how to move, how to traverse the material world. We have men and women trying to change positions, not just in terms of role, literally trying to change from being a man to being a woman, just not having the understanding that you were born in this body, and you can't go against that unless you change your body, which you will, without having proper knowledge, of course. But then again, there's this changing of positions as well. I was really shocked to hear, again, this feminist, this point's like come up multiple times since you guys had this program, about this feminist who thinks, or made the claim that actually before the Abrahamic religions came about, women were actually in power and men were subservient. And after the coming on of Abrahamic religions, then men somehow got into power. I didn't learn that in school. I don't think anybody did. In this, even materially speaking, it's nonsense. There's a lot of things you could say to combat that. But we see that people are completely bereft of knowledge, and this ultimately because of this you could say the society, this inability to properly discern what's right, what's wrong. In the Bhagavatam, it's stated, because we see this rampant mixing. I'm really harping, I feel heavily now on points I didn't expect to expand on, but you can pull up Bhagavatam, Canto 3, text 31. I'm sorry, chapter 31, text 41, please. Speaking about men and women. Now, actually, I want you to jump ahead. Go to 42, because this one had been brought up a couple times about again, Lord Kapila Deva speaking to Devahuti. About how the man and woman can be dangerous for each other as well. A woman therefore should consider her husband, her house, and her children to be the arrangement of the external energy of the Lord for her death, just as the sweet singing of the hunter is death for the deer. I think a couple devotees have referenced this beforehand. Now you can go back to 41. It's stated that a living entity who, as a result of attachment to a woman in his previous life, has been endowed with the form of a woman, foolishly looks upon Maya in the form of a man, her husband, as the bestower of wealth, progeny, house, and other material assets. I want to go through the purport. From this verse, it appears that a woman is also supposed to have been a man in his, in parentheses it says her. I thought that was funny. Especially because we have even now these designations to the point where people will put they'll have a social media, and in case you didn't know what gender they were, you can choose your pronouns. It can be him, her, or it. So again, anyways, that's a, what? Yeah, exactly. You have. So, anyways, her. Of course, the understanding is that we're spirit, soul, but we still have to act according to our natures. But anyways, larger point. From this verse, it appears that a woman is also supposed to have been a man in his or her previous life, and due to his attachment to his wife, he now has the body of a woman. Bhagavad Gita confirms this. A man gets his next life's birth according to what he thinks of at the time of death. If someone is too attached to his wife, naturally he thinks of his wife at the time of death, and in his next life he takes the body of a woman. Similarly, if a woman thinks of her husband at the time of death, naturally she gets the body of a man in the next life. In the Hindu scriptures, therefore, woman's chastity and devotion to man is greatly emphasized. A woman's attachment to her husband may elevate her to the body of a man in her next life, but a man's attachment to a woman will degrade him, and in his next life, he will get the body of a woman. Therefore, we should always remember, as it is stated in Bhagavad Gita, that both the gross and subtle material bodies are dresses. They are the shirt and coat of the living entity. To be either a woman or a man involves only one's bodily dress. The soul in nature is actually the marginal energy of the Supreme Lord. Every living entity being classified as energy is supposed to be originally a woman or one who is enjoyed. In the body of a man, there is a greater opportunity to get out of the material clutches. There is less opportunity in the body of a woman. So I was trying to find this reference. I saw it on Vaṇi quotes, and every time I hit the link, it wouldn't open up. But there's a purport where Prabhupada basically describes that now, in today's population, because men have excessive attachment for women, the population of women is also increasing and the population of man is decreasing. So again, you see just this, you see people they're switching. Again, it's this big switching that's going on in the material world. It's a pretty abominable situation, because people are taking bodies where they're less likely to be able to take up spiritual life. Now, if not take up spiritual life, then at least be able to be in a situation where they'll be able to advance in it. Of course, just being in a woman's body, you understand the power of Krishna consciousness. No matter what type of body one is in, one can take to devotional service, but acting within that nature and following the instructions that are given, especially the point is made over and over again that a woman should take shelter of a man, should submit herself to a man in order to reap the benefits that he gains in executing devotional service. And it's a sweet deal, I mean, hell. But when you just have women and no men, that dynamic is lost. So it's a dangerous thing, but we're seeing that. So again, we see again, I was speaking on that again because it's Kaśyapa, he's making the point. You must wait only for a few seconds so that others may not reproach me. So all this essentially can be avoided, or at least regulated, when there are these restrictions, when the society is set up in a manner that people can't just freely act on their desires, and they're not encouraged to do so in such a gross manner. So when you look at the standards for raising families, raising children, and having relationships, this is another point that's also been touched on in past classes. Just the current state that society is in, where you have men and women so frustrated with each other because they both want the same thing and don't know how the hell to go about getting it. So they're concocting all these different ways to go about doing that. I believe it was Ali Krishna Prabhu had shared children being born from these artificial wombs, I believe, was it? Because you might have two women who are lesbian and they don't want to have men in their lives, but you still find that they can't get away from it because they have to go to a sperm bank when they want to have a child, and that came from a man. So we have all these different ideas about how we can cut out this, that, the other, and make these relationships that are not natural. Whereas when you have in Vedic society, at least, the standards are. This is more. And this was also referenced in brahmacharya class, the importance of having an intelligent class of men who don't deviate from the standard so that the essence is never lost, and then it trickles down and everybody who's following them at least know what that standard is. So of course there's, and that doesn't just apply for advancing the spiritual life. How to act within society, how to treat one another. We see that when that isn't followed, again, like I said, the essence is lost. Society starts to move backwards. And versus when it's followed, we see actual progress. Not even just not even just spiritually, but materially as well. Because when we take shelter of the system that of which Krishna gives, we see that we find that there's prosperity there as well. It's described that Swayambhuv Manu, for example, had a lot of opulence, and he was a perfect example, perfect representation, he acted as a perfect representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as a result of that, opulence was there within his kingdom. Whereas, again, we were discussing this the other day. I remember when we were chanting japa. We were chanting anyways, and like this car was zooming by on this back street, and it was ripping 3-4 times. It's like really trying to let everybody know I have a really loud car, and I want to make sure you know it at 9:00. And the point came up somehow about how what is perceived to be opulence in this day and age, and we think it's having these fast cars, having jewelry. Jewelry is there, in Vedic society. It's been stated that people would have gold utensils, gold plates, so that when there was, if there was some sort of financial hardship that might have come about, you sell the gold because that has real value, versus again, everything is digital nowadays. It's not actually there in the physical sense that the money's paper. It has assigned value, of course. And then back to these cars, for example, they're made of tin and they go fast, and it's achieving the same thing that an animal achieves ultimately by running on 4 legs. Advancement. Hare Krishna. So it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing. So why was I bringing that up? The society at large, more specific, the dynamics, I guess, of people in society. That was the main thing. So again, coming back to the purport, Kaśyapa Muni is describing. Please wait for a few seconds so that others may not reproach me. Previously, you would see that it was not such a noble thing to engage openly in just any sort of affection between men and women, where now it's it's very much not maybe not directly revered, but at least subtly it's heavily endorsed. You see it especially in like entertainment, where women, in the name of thinking that this is them being given means to express themselves, are being exploited to flaunt their bodies for all to see. Just in a very perverse and provocative manner. I remember there was one artist who went, for example, to this basketball game, and she wore some very like revealing clothing, and it was like, this is like so ridiculous. There were like people, the media people were complaining online, like, I can't believe she wore this to like a basketball game. This is like so wrong. And she was like dancing when they like said, oh, it was Lizzo. That's who it was. Yeah. And they were like, oh yeah, like we got Lizzo here, and they like put the camera on her, and she does some like really like, degraded dance, and like people were like really upset about it. But then other people were saying, it's like, well, how is this any different from what the cheerleaders are doing at halftime, or what the people who are like other artists and whatnot are maybe have a different body type? It's the same thing, actually. It's just a different type of Maya. But it's the exact same. It's the exact same thing going on. It's just that maybe you weren't directly attracted to that same thing, or attracted to that form, but you were attracted to another one. You didn't have a problem with it. So we're seeing that again, society is twisted. It has its layers of Maya, I'll just say, for lack of better words. This point is made. Losing it a little bit. Give me 1 second. All right. Okay. So men and women changing bodies, and that frustration being there. We see that men, it's become quite common that, again, despite all this advancement we're making in this day and age, more and more people are depressed, they're anxious, and they're killing themselves. And those same people who kill themselves and they take shelter of suicide, it's described here that they take shelter of women, or in the wombs of women who are engaging in illicit activity in inauspicious times. So it's really crazy how it kind of all comes together. As a result of this so-called society or so-called civilization, again, we see people changing, giving up their gross body, thinking that by taking shelter